and welcome to CrimeDivers. I'm Laura.
And I'm Jill.
And welcome to our first episode of 2024. So we'd just like to say a Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, everybody.
Yep, obviously we are a bit late in the month, but we have had a break over the Christmas and the New Year period, so...
Yeah, so hopefully everybody's had a nice Christmas period, nice Christmas break, and hopefully we're not all too depressed because it's January.
I know, it's like the longest month of the year.
I know.
Or it always feels like the longest month
Nearly
of the year.
payday, mind.
Oh yes, for some it will be nearly payday. But yes,
No long to go now.
Yes, we're back for 2024 and ready to go.
Yeah, so today is a Laura-sode. So where in the world are we?
We are in Australia today.
Okay, and what is the name of your episode?
The Frankston serial killer.
Oh, okay. Do you want to dive in?
Let's dive in. Paul Charles Denyer was born on the 14th of April 1972. He was born to British immigrant parents Anthony and Maureen? I'm not sure. Maureen Denyer.
Do you not know how to say Maureen?
Well, it didn't sound right when I said that there. I was like, Maureen? I'm like, Maureen. Anyway.
It's quite a common name.
Okay, whatever, that's her name. And they lived in Campbelltown, New South Wales. They had met and married in London in the early 1960s before migrating to Australia in 1965. So the family moved to Victoria in 1981 due to Anthony's new job. It is reported that Denyer had problems fitting in. Like, obviously with the move and stuff, he had problems fitting in with, like, socially and stuff. And that led to problems with his studying, his self-confidence. And that was worsened as he gained weight during his teenage years. Okay. So, obviously, to go through your teenage years is probably hard enough. And if you're moving to a new place and you're not fitting in and stuff. Yeah. So, he was obviously just not, let's say he was just not finding things easy. And that was starting to have an effect on him as a person. So, at age 11, he actually slashed the throat of his sister's teddy bear.
Oh!
No, his sister, I know.
Sister
I realised as I was saying that, I was like, let me finish to say teddy bear. So, yeah, his sister's teddy bear. He also cut the throat of the family cat before hanging it in a tree. Sorry, I should maybe put a wee trigger warning at the start to say that there's obviously a little bit of animal torture here. So, yeah, that's quite brutal,
that's
actually.
Horrendous.
Yeah, actually, and actually, it's like their family cat. It's not even, obviously any animal is terrible to do anything like that to, but you'd think you would have more affection for a family pet, but clearly not. And when he was 13, he was arrested for stealing a car, and at the age of 15, he was arrested for assaulting a fellow student. So he had quite a troubled childhood, really. And whether that is all stemmed from the moving and I'm not fitting in, obviously I don't know specifically, but it's obviously had an effect on him, a terrible effect on him. So after he left school, he also had problems holding down a job, which kind of, I think, seems no surprise. He was actually fired 7 times.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, and he did actually try to get into the Victoria Police, so he obviously wanted to do something.
Really?
Yeah, but he failed the physical test of that, but he obviously had something in him that made him want to join the police.
Right.
Which
I don't know what to say to that.
Yeah, considering what was going to happen, then it is, I suppose, maybe surprising, but sadly, let's say he failed the physical, so he didn't get in, and I'm assuming he never tried again. So, in February 1993, Denyer started working at a boat building firm in Seaford called Pro Marine. And a short time after he began working there, colleagues actually saw him making knives at work, because I'm assuming there would be a lot of steel and stuff, because it's like a marine company.
Well, he also had the material
there.
Yeah,
the material was there, so he obviously started making basically his own knives. But, as with his track record, he didn't last long.
Yeah, did he get fired for there as well?
Yeah, after several months, he was fired due to his failure to complete assigned tasks. So, I'm not even funny that if he's making knives and stuff like that, he's obviously not doing what he should be actually doing. So, I guess you can understand that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, of course, you know, he just couldn't. He wasn't obviously doing well in life at this point. And when he was aged sort of 20 to 21, he took things a step further. And he began to stalk and attack a number of women in and around the Melbourne suburb of Frankston. And this was during a 5-month period in 1993.
Mm.
So the first known incident occurred in February 1993 when Donna Vane's, obviously where she lived, she was broken into. And after she was actually broken into, and she'd had an anonymous threatening phone call as well. So Donna was quite scared of being alone after that.
Yeah.
So she had obviously her boyfriend at the time. She would actually ask him to take her and their newborn baby out with him while he delivered pizzas, because she just didn't want to be in the house.
Yeah, that's sad that you have to do that. Eh?
I know, because that's it. Because I mean, you know, when you're delivering pizzas, you're working at night as well, so she'd have to be taking her and her newborn baby.
You don't want to be doing that
out at night times when they should be settled in the house and warm and stuff. But she obviously felt that scared that she didn't want to be alone. So that was due to the phone call. So she was broken into, but this was during one of the times that she was actually out delivering the pizzas. So they'd been out for around an hour, and Donna and her boyfriend and the baby obviously returned back to their house, and they realised then that they had been broken into. There was blood on the floor, which was from one of their cats, who had been killed.
Oh.
So they naturally called the police. The police arrived, and upon investigation, they discovered that the cat had been slaughtered with its intestines spread across the floor, its eyes removed, and a pornographic image had been put on its body. Just like a picture had been put on its body. And then written in the cat's blood above the stove were the words, "Donna, you're dead."
Oh.
So, I mean,
terrifying.
That's awful. Like, I would totally be freaked. In the bathroom, police found Donna's 2 kittens. So she had a cat and there was 2 kittens, and they had also been slaughtered, and their throats had been cut. And they were actually left floating in the bath. Which,
I feel sick.
Yes, it's not pleasant. Shaving foam had been sprayed over a mirror in the bedroom, and more pornographic images posted over wardrobe.
Mirror drawer door?
Yeah. No, over a wardrobe. I've wrote over a wardrobe.
Oh.
I wrote over a wardrobe furniture. So that actually makes no sense. On the wardrobe. Sorry. I realised what I've written now. So yeah, pornographic images were posted over on a wardrobe, and the furniture had also been slashed. So they'd obviously just slashed furniture wise. And there was also a pornographic image which had been left inside the cot of Donna's baby. Obviously, the baby wasn't there, but
but still, just that. That's just not right.
No, exactly. So, obviously, she'd already been spooked from the anonymous threatening phone call that she had. So, of course, this just tipped her over the edge. She was that spooked by it.
Spooked?
Well,
I'd be terrified.
Well, terrified, that she refused to stay there anymore. She was like, nah, I don't want to stay here. And so she moved in with her sister, who, I don't know if it's ironically or not, but her sister actually stayed next door to Paul Charles Denyer. So this was obviously just the beginning of...
Well, he would have loved that. If he's the one who's going to... I'm assuming he's going to... Well, he's already been terrorising her, so...
Yeah.
That'd be perfect for him, having her next door.
Well, exactly. So at about 7 p.m. on the evening of Friday, the 11th of June 1993, 18-year-old Elizabeth Stevens was on her way home. She had been on the bus, but she had to get off a little way from her home, because obviously the bus stop didn't go right to her house, so she had to get off at the nearest stop, and then walk a bit to get to home. So she lived there with her aunt and uncle, as she had come to Melbourne from Tasmania. She'd come to study, as she wanted to join the armed forces and obviously she couldn't do that where she was living in Tasmania. So as she turned into the corner of her street, she was grabbed from behind and threatened with what looked like a gun. Elizabeth obviously screamed, but her screams were not heard because it was really heavy raining and it was windy, so like her screams weren't heard basically because the weather was so bad. So Elizabeth was told to shut up or I'll blow your head off. Her attacker took her hand and walked down the street, trying not to draw any suspicion. So there were several witnesses walking past and they just assumed that they were a couple because she must have obviously complied and just...
Well, she would have been scared in case
Yeah, exactly. So she probably must have been managing to walk sort of fairly normally, that it didn't really draw any attention that she was obviously
people don't notice things, do they? You're just walking down the street. People aren't going to pay attention.
Well, exactly, especially if it's windy, raining and stuff like that, and, you know, people might have their hoods up or
they've got their heads down,
because that's the kind of thing I do. I'm like, head up, brolly on, and I'm not really paying attention. Like, I might be aware that somebody's like walking past me, but I'm probably not.
You're going to be looking at them.
No, and especially if it's obviously dark as well. I mean, it was 7 p.m, so I mean, I'm assuming. I mean, it was June though, so but in Australia their winters are like that sort of time, is it? So it might have been a dark.
Who knows?
Anyway, so Elizabeth and her attacker, who we obviously know was Paul Charles Denyer, they arrived at a place called Lloyd Park Reserve, and Elizabeth was first sexually propositioned, but she wasn't actually sexually assaulted, so I think he obviously was like, you know, I'm going to do X, Y, or Z to you, but he never actually did, which...
Okay.
I mean, it's good for her, obviously, because she didn't want to be sexually assaulted, but I don't know why he obviously tried to and then didn't. So instead, she was then strangled, stabbed, and her throat cut. So, of course, it still wasn't obviously a great outcome. Denyer then stomped viciously on her face, breaking several of her facial bones. Her lifeless body was then dragged across blackberry bushes a short distance where there was flowing water, and sadly she did die of her injuries. And if that wasn't bad enough, she was also stabbed and slashed across the torso after she'd actually died. So,
why?
I haven't, you know, I don't know. I mean, I don't know why anybody kills anybody in the first place, but what do you get out of then continuing to do
once
something?
they're already gone.
Well, exactly.
Yeah,
like, I don't see what that, you know, what purpose that even is, but that's what he did. So, of course, Elizabeth had told her aunt and uncle that she was studying that night, and she would have been home around 8 p.m. So when she failed to arrive home, her aunt and uncle thought, oh, she's probably just running a wee bit late, you know. Just, as normal people do.
You're not going to think anything
No, not instantly. You think, oh, I'll probably just run a wee bit late. But around, by the time I got to 10:30, her uncle started driving around the area searching for her. So the police were notified soon after. Obviously that she'd been missing, but it wasn't long before her body was discovered, which, I mean, I say not long, I mean, it was 5 p.m. the next same day, but in terms of a missing person, I suppose it was not too long. Her body was discovered at 5 p.m. the following day by a man who was collecting pine branches, and she was actually only killed 250 metres from her home, so...
close then.
Well, that's it, because I say she just turned into her street. After she got off the bus, so she was pretty close to home, and then the point Lloyd Park Reserve mustn't have been too far from her house either. So, you know, she was sadly almost home. So a post-mortem was obviously done, and the cause of death was aspiration of blood and hemorrhage from stab wounds to the neck, and it also indicated that she'd been strangled. So an extensive search was done of the area, both where Elizabeth's body was located and surrounding streets. So there was a bag with books and documents with Elizabeth's name that they found, and they also found the blades of a knife as well. And every resident in the local vicinity was spoken to. Police even rode the local bus to see if anyone on board recognised Elizabeth, but at the time police didn't get any good leads, and they didn't discover any clues that would help them solve her murder. So initially they didn't know who had done it. So a month later, on Thursday the 8th of July, 41-year-old Rosa Toth, she was on her way home and she had just got off the train at Seaford railway station and she was heading north along Railway Parade, and it was around 10 to 6 in the evening. She was walking past Seaford North Reserve and she noticed a man hanging around near the toilet block. And she obviously was a bit wary.
Yeah.
Which, unfortunately, she was right to be wary. Because she obviously walked past him. Mm-hmm. And shortly after she walked past him, she was actually attacked by this person that was hanging around. She was dragged into the park. But luckily, she actually managed to break free. An attacker had held a fake gun to her head and she pretended to submit to it. So she was like, okay, didn't really put up a fight, but I think that must have made him lower his guard a bit, because then she managed to just break free and basically run for it. So she was obviously very shaken and she had light injuries, so nothing major, but she was able to run back to the road, stop a car, and got taken back to her house. So thankfully that was,
Yeah.
But unfortunately that then led to another girl on the same night.
Yeah.
So at the same night, 22-year-old Deborah Freem, she was actually abducted in her car, where you'd think that you would be quite safe. She had left her 12-year-old son at home with a male friend. It was around about 7 p.m. She obviously wanted to nip out to the shop to buy some milk, because she wanted to make an omelette for dinner or whatever, but she had run out of milk. So she'd left at 7 p.m, so I'm assuming she obviously wasn't expected to be very long, so, for instance, last night I nipped to the shop to get something for my dinner, and I was out 10 minutes, so I'm assuming it's that kind of thing. So when she wasn't home an hour later at 8 o'clock, her male friend was obviously very worried, because, what's taking her so long. So he called her. She had a boyfriend, so her friend called her boyfriend. He actually called the police and also the local hospital, trying to find any news of her whereabouts and any possibility had she been in an accident or what had happened to her. So the boyfriend must have come over, so they actually went out looking for her as well, seeing if they could find her. They travelled to the shop that she was going to, see her, the route that she would have went, but they didn't find her at all. So they obviously phoned the police and reported her missing. But on the afternoon of the Monday, the 12th of July, a farmer found Deborah's body on Taylor's Road. And like Elizabeth Stevens, she had been strangled, savagely slashed, and her throat cut.
Yeah.
So, again, not a good outcome. So on Friday, the 30th of July, the third and final victim was 17-year-old schoolgirl Natalie Russell. She was attacked while walking home from John Paul College, and at the time there was media speculation, there was heightened public fear, and there was warnings from the school, about being out alone and stuff, because there obviously had been a few instances of an attacker, so, people were aware that this was going on. But Natalie, she was obviously, she walked home. She took her usual shortcut home to Frankston North via a fenced walkway, which is actually now called Natch Track.
Okay.
Obviously wasn't at the time.
Yeah.
And so that's in her memory, which passes between two golf courses on Sky Road. And at about 8 p.m, Natalie was reported missing to Frankston police station, because again she was expected home, didn't turn up. And police soon found her body. She had been dragged from the path through a large hole in a wire fence, and again she had died of a similar manner to the others during the attack, but apparently she had put up quite a fight, which did assist investigators, as there was actually DNA evidence at the scene, which they hadn't been able to really get from the previous two.
Yeah.
So now the police knew that they had a serial killer on their hands, because that was three murders and an attempted obviously one, and the three girls that had been murdered, as we've just said, that they were all killed in similar ways. So there was an MO, there was the same person, what they thought. But there, like I said before, there had been no forensic evidence at the first two murders of Deborah and Elizabeth, and that was due to the poor weather at the time of those murders. Because remember I said it was terrible
raining,
weather.
yeah.
So that obviously would have washed sort of any really major DNA evidence away. And Rosa Toth, the woman who had managed to escape, she managed to give a description of her attacker, and she had said that he was about 18 to 20 years old, 180 centimetres tall, with a round face and blue eyes. Police drop a profile of a suspect male, likely unemployed or with a menial job, like a local residence, aged 18 to 24, average looking and living alone.
Mm-hmm.
So that was obviously what had been described. So in the lead up to the murder of Natalie Russell, investigators were already in the process of door knocking 4,700 homes in Frankston, and it was codenamed Operation Pulsar. The door knock at the time was the largest door knock that had ever been conducted by Victoria Police. So Natalie Russell's murder provided police with the breakthrough that they needed. So at 2:30 p.m, a postal worker had seen a rusted yellow Toyota Corona without number plates parked near what we now know as Nat's Track, with a man using binoculars and acting suspiciously inside. As she stopped at a house to call police, she noticed Natalie approaching the track alone. So she was also going to call police for the fact that she'd seen this suspicious man.
Mm-hmm.
But as she was going to do that, she noticed Natalie approaching the track alone. And then she noticed that the man obviously was observing Natalie. And then the man got out of the car and had run up the track after Natalie. So police obviously responded to that, and they noted the registration number, and they obviously knocked on a few doors nearby just to see if anybody else had seen anything and stuff. But they actually had to leave to attend to another call, because obviously at this point it was just sort of the suspicious man. They didn't realise there was anything major happening.
Right.
So they had to leave to attend another call. And later forensic investigations of the walkway revealed 3 holes that were cut in the fence, with the same, like the sort of cut in the same way, and there was like blood traces on one of them alongside skin and hair traces on Natalie, but there was nothing like that. I mean, at that point they weren't sure, but they obviously had some. They didn't know it was obviously connected to Natalie. So police informed investigators of the registration details, which were quickly traced to the car's owner, and the car was Paul Charles Denyer's car. It has been his car that had been sitting there. So the detectives went to his house, which he shared with his girlfriend. He actually had a girlfriend.
Wow. Imagine finding out that your boyfriend's a murderer.
Exactly. So while his movements, he admitted to being in the area of the vicinity at the time of Deborah and Natalie's murders. So he was then taken to Frankston police station and interviewed. And police officers actually noticed cuts and scratches on him. Mm-hmm. But he was unable to explain where they came from. He agreed to have his DNA collected, and early on the 1st of August, what? Oh, I don't know what I've said there. Sorry, I've that P. So basically, anyway, he had his DNA taken. So he admitted to the murders, and he admitted to the assault, and he admitted to the break-in.
Right.
And Denyer told detectives that he had been stalking women of the Frankston area for years, and that the motivation for the crimes was a desire to kill from the age of 14. And it was basically like a general hatred of girls and women. So that was his reasons for doing it. He just
hated women, hated
exactly.
females.
Yeah, which I don't really know on what basis that comes from, because what is it that they've done to him that causes that? I mean, you can maybe not like women and stuff, but
maybe because, as you said earlier, he had bother sort of settling in and stuff, and maybe he'd gained weight and things like that. Maybe he was subject to bullying, and maybe that could
possibly,
that could be girls at school, maybe.
True, that's very
bullying
true.
him about his weight or whatever.
That's true. So Denyer was charged with 3 counts of murder and 1 of abduction. He pled guilty, and he didn't contest the charges. psychologists and experts noted a lack of emotion regarding the crimes. They noted they had a single-minded desire to kill, and the unusual randomness by which victims were chosen, leading to a diagnosis of sadistic personality disorder, but not legal insanity. So they basically were saying he did have a disorder, but he wasn't insane. Like, he hadn't...
Right.
So,
okay.
And actually, he during his examination, he actually admitted to being influenced by the 1987 film The Stepfather.
Never seen it.
No, me neither.
And is it a horror?
Well, to be honest, I should have looked that up. I didn't actually look it up, so I've actually no idea. I meant to, because I actually just remember now I had this mental note to go and look that up to actually find what it's about, and I've just realised that I haven't done that.
So, The Stepfather. Let's see, I'll look it up.
You look it up, because and I totally remember it clear in my head going, right, go and look that up. Like, once you finish, go back to that and look it up and find out what it's about. And clearly I didn't do that. But you can do that.
Right, okay. So, I'm just having a look.
1987 film, The Stepfather.
Okay.
Have you not found it yet?
No, the laptop was just... Right.
Here, I've got it.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, the plot is, after murdering his entire family, a man marries a widow with a teenage daughter in another town and prepares to do it all over again.
Oh.
So...
There's one in 2009 as well.
How was there?
The Stepfather 2009.
Oh. But no, this one's...
Oh, it's a remake. Yeah.
Oh, right. Okay.
A remake of the 1987 film of the same name.
Yeah. So yeah, just want to kill people and just keep doing it, so...
Okay.
Fair enough. So, I mean, not a film that I've seen personally, but never mind. So anyway, on this 20th of December 1993, after 4 days of the court case, he was sentenced in Melbourne Supreme Court to 3 consecutive sentences of life imprisonment with no parole period.
Right.
But on the 31st of December, he lodged an appeal which was heard in July 1994, and that actually granted him a non-parole period, of 30 years, so he could apply for parole after 30 years.
Right.
So his sentence was still the same, but after 30 years he could apply for parole, whereas initially they weren't allowing him to do that.
Right.
So 10 years after being in prison, Denyer actually started identifying as a woman, briefly, known as Paula.
I knew I'd heard this before. Do you know, I was sitting there thinking when you were talking about Nick's... No, what was it? Nat's.
Yeah, Nat's.
When
Nat's
you were
Track.
Nat's Track, that was it, and I thought... And that's when I was thinking to myself, I've heard this case before, that really rings a bell.
Uh-huh.
But then I was thinking to myself, was the killer not transgender?
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But this was obviously after the crimes, so it was whilst he was in prison, he decided to...
so it was male...
When he did the crimes.
Right, and then he...
But this was only briefly.
Right, alright,
Paula. He claimed that the feelings of gender dysmorphia were what led him to revenge against women by murdering them. So that's what he said when he was in prison. So at the time, he just said that he had this hatred. But when he decided to become Paula, that's what he said. He... Oh my God, what have I wrote now? Oh, this is why you should read things before you go.
Yeah. Would be helpful.
Yeah. Basically he said that he'd never really hated womankind, but because he had never really felt male, he'd started to wear women's clothing and cosmetics in prison. And that was in defiance of prison orders. But this was actually very brief, as he actually reverted back to identifying as Paul.
Right.
So I'm not sure what or why or how long that particularly was for, but
right.
It was briefly known as Paula and then reverted back to be known as Paul. So this year he actually became eligible. So 2023 he became eligible and applied for release on parole, but thankfully his application has been denied by the Parole Board of Victoria. So he has been denied parole.
Good.
And he is currently still in prison. And
where he belongs.
Hopefully for ever and never and ever.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep, he's where he belongs then.
mm-hmm.
So thanks for that, and thanks to everybody for listening.
Thanks. See you later.
Bye. If you would like to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, or Threads, we are crime_divers_pod. We are on Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube, and it's Crime Divers Podcast. Our email is crime_divers_pod@outlook.com. Our website is crimedivers.co.uk. If you would like to join our Patreon, it's patreon.com/crimedivers. And if you would like to buy us a coffee, it's buymeacoffee.com/crimedivers.
And if you haven't already, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, review.